In summer, you can usually find me here at the allotment garden or at home in the new garden, the new home garden. And there's so much work to be done. But occasionally, we do get a little time off and time to explore this beautiful island that we live on. The Isle of Man has it all, pretty much. It has castles, it has deserted beaches, it has beautiful landscapes, it's on the water. And if you enjoy walking or hiking holidays, this is definitely going to be your place to visit. Now, in all of the years that I've lived here on the Isle of Man, there's been one place that I've really wanted to visit, and we recently got the opportunity to go for a couple of nights actually, and that is to the Calf of Man. The Calf of Man is a tiny island just off the south coast. It's only 1.5 miles long and 1 mile wide, and no people live there permanently. It's a nature reserve. And to get there, you have to take a boat. We set out from Port St. Mary one morning, and we very nearly weren't able to go because it was windy and pretty wild, but fortunately the winds were coming from the north, which meant that we could get out of the harbor. The trip out was stunning, just being on the water, hardly another person in sight, the occasional boat in the distance, and all along the way there were cliffs filled with seabirds nesting, and there were waves crashing against those cliffs. We saw places where there were caves and places where people in the past had mined for stone. You can walk around the Calf of Man in a day, and indeed you could do it as a day trip. But while you're walking around, it's really important that you stick to the footpaths, and that's because birds might be nesting everywhere else. And that's the point of the Calf of Man. It's a haven, a safe place for wildlife, especially birds. But while you're walking around, you'll see other things. You'll see Loaghtan sheep, you'll see abandoned cottages, you'll see structures that have you wondering, and you'll also hear the automated puffins. There are puffin decoys out on the coast as well, luring in those puffins, or attempting to. And this year it has been successful. Puffins are back after many years' absence. The Lighthouses are beautiful, but utterly abandoned, and they were made redundant by the Chicken Rock Lighthouse that was built off the coast. The Chicken Rock Lighthouse is still in use, and it's automated. Though visitors can enjoy the Calf of Man as a place to get away from it all and to see wildlife and nature, the two resident wardens work daily to gently catch and record the moths, but especially the bird species on the island. And they do that in very fine nets. It's important work because there are several species on the Calf of Man that are threatened or endangered, including kittiwakes, manx shearwaters, and puffins. What type of bird is it?
It's a stonechat. So this is a typical juvenile striped plumage, and over the next few weeks it will undergo a body molt where it will replace all of those feathers, and then it will attain its summer adult plumage. Okay, any ideas what this might be?
Nope. Same type, just older.
No, it's different species altogether. So this is a juvenile starling.
It's a starling! Oh yeah.
So this was probably bred on the Isle of Man. It is a female. Tell by the noise. And I was saying to you about the post-juvenile molt. Starlings are one of the few species which undergo a complete post-juvenile molt. So the stonechat does a body molt, but the starling does a complete molt, and that means that it replaces all of its wing feathers as well.
The Wardens live at the observatory. It's a 19th century manx cottage in the center of the islands. And we stayed there too for 2 nights. So we got to know them and also the other people staying there, because up to 8 people can book in the cottage per night. It's the second morning, or is it the first morning? We've spent the night here last night, and this will be the first full day that we'll be exploring the island, this little calf of man. And yesterday we checked out the lighthouses. Today we're going to go over to the other side of the calf, see what's there. Really hoping to see some puffins, but we'll be happy to see if we can find any wildlife. We've just read that in the past, when people used to live on the Calf of Man, they used to swim cattle across here. Now I'm just gonna zoom in and we're gonna look at that current, because that is crazy. They must have had to wait for a really calm day as far as the tides and weather, because wow, you would just be swept away. One of our favorite parts of the trip to the Calf of Man was the boat ride out there and the boat ride back. And on the last day, Phil and Caroline came back and picked us up in the rib and took us on a boat trip around the Calf of Man before we went back to the harbor. We went out, we saw the Drinking Dragon, this incredible rock formation that literally looks like a drinking dragon. And then we went out to the Chicken Rock Lighthouse with incredible views back to the Calf of Man. And then afterwards, caves, we saw seals, and we saw 2 puffins. So whether you are a local to the Isle of Man or you're planning to visit here, definitely see if you can get at least a boat ride out to the Calf of Man. It will be well worth your trip. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the Isle of Man, I have another video which is a day trip around the Isle of Man, and you can watch that next. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next week here on Lovely Greens. Bye for now.